Welcome to your Cancer horoscopes for the last week of March, the 24th through the 30th. We are entering the shadow period of our first full Mercury retrograde this year. We did kind of start off the year in Mercury retrograde for a few days. This is the first full retrograde for this year, and it is a full Aries Mercury retrograde. So we're moving into the fire signs this year, predominantly for Mercury retrogrades. And Aries can be a very aggressive energy, definitely really aggressive for Cancers who tends to not really like to be around aggressive energies too terribly much. If that makes sense. So it may be a bit challenging, especially with how things are lining up in Cancer right now. There's no planets in Cancer necessarily. Focus is on self, but Vespa is moving from Gemini into Cancer, and this week moves into the cusp of both signs. So it's very much coming in to influence things, and its influence is very much on our inner selves. So while Cancer itself is focused on who we are to the world, Vespa is bringing that who we are deep inside, the parts of us that we don't necessarily show the world, and bringing those two parts together, which can be very uncomfortable, especially for sensitive people. Bottom line, though, here is that uncomfortable as it may be, it's actually a necessity for us to evaluate where we've come from, what we're still holding on to, what influences from the past are have an influence over how we feel about security now. And security is a big deal for Cancer. I mean, it is the sign that represents security and nurturing and that sort of maternal feeling that somebody will always be there for you in a way, or and that a lot of the times physically interprets to the Cancers doing that for others in the hopes of getting that reciprocation back. And with that being said, a lot of those insecurities may pop up in that way as you start to see that everything that you've done to sacrifice yourself for others is not necessarily being seen, appreciated, reciprocated, mentioned at all. It's the typical mom response. I say this like probably so much that people are going to get upset, but it's true. A lot of moms and wives go through this same feeling of sacrificing themselves for everybody around them for nothing, for them to not even notice that you're doing it, right? And it feels really crappy. But at the same time, this gives us an opportunity to understand why we're doing this. If you are sacrificing your needs for everybody around you, then what you're doing is you're avoiding your own plans and goals and what you want to do for yourself. And you're using the people around you as an excuse as to why you can't do it. Human beings classically do the blame game all the time. I mean, it is every single day I hear it from at least somebody, myself included, that I would be farther along in my life had not all of these things happened. And while it may be true that in some cases the people around us need to be taken care of, and so that results in us not having as much time for our schedule and what we want to get accomplished. It is also about what we choose to get done in a day and how we choose to spend that time as well. So there is still always in that situation something for us to look at and identify as self-sabotage personally for our goals and plans, especially around creating security for yourself. It's a big deal for most people. And I think that for a lot of the kids these days, the Gen Zs and that are coming into adulthood and the generations that are coming in after that, it's getting more, they're more and more less likely to leave the nest. And this has a lot to do with insecurities around their own independence. And it doesn't matter whether they're cancers or not. It seems like in many cases, they all feel the same way. Like they cannot survive on their own. They don't have the proper tools, what have you, or they just don't want to. In many cases, I've seen that they just don't want to. It's comfortable where they are, and why would they leave that? Well, I would tend to agree, except it puts you in a really bad position, especially if that security is somehow yanked out from underneath you, which life has a tendency to do one way or another. So I feel like the bottom line here for this week is it's a really good opportunity to understand where some of your insecurities are coming from because they're being triggered. And then afterwards, it's a really good opportunity for you to determine how you may be using those insecurities in a form of self-sabotage for yourself. When you understand this, it gives you the power to make changes. Before, when you don't do this, it keeps you in that space of blaming everybody else for why you're in the situation that you're in. And granted, I have heard a lot of stories from a lot of different people about why they're in the situation that they're in. It always comes down to choices, and the choices that you make impact everything that happens. So unless you made all the right choices and you know it for certain, you probably could have made different choices, and you probably could make different choices from here on out. Just saying. It's worth trying anyways. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do consider sending a tip or donation through my coffee link in the description. Really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. I'm Melissa Bruce, Heavy Metal Psychic, and I will see you guys next week. And in the meantime, you guys do a good job. There is no limit to what you guys can do. All you have to do is get out of the fear and and spread your wings and see what happens. That's it. That's all you got to do. I know it sounds easy, sounds probably harder than it sounds, but that's all perception also when you think about it. I'll see you guys next week. Make it a great week.